Hello there and welcome. It is Sunday, you know what the drill is. It is Stacking Sunday. And today I'm a bit weary because this project that I saw looming in the hard drive, it is a bit of a big project. If I open up my drive here, then you can already see that I have a set of data on the Boats and Cigar galaxy, which is a nice galaxy group in Ursa Major, the Big Dipper or the Big Plough or the Big Bear, whatever you want to name that constellation. It's not so much those two galaxies that are interesting. The most interesting part, I think, is that there is a lot of detail in certain specific wavelengths, H alpha to be exact, and there's also a kind of nebulosity in between those galaxies. Actually, the theory is that it is nebulosity which is actually in between galaxies. So it's not within our own galaxy, not in the Milky Way, it's in the intergalactic space, if that is a word. It's called the Integrated Flux Nebula because flux is a word meaning light, and integrated is referring to that this light that makes this nebulosity visible at all is the combined light of our own galaxy. I've tried imaging it before, and I can show an example on my Telescopius profile. It's this image here. Yeah, I'm not going to say it's a perfect image. This nebulosity, these streaks in the background, that is the Integrated Flux Nebula. There's also something else. I mentioned HA. So if I zoom in, for instance, on the Cigar galaxy, M82 it is, I think. I always forget. The one is M81, the other is M82. But you can see these, yeah, it's almost a jet shooting out of the core of the galaxy. It's gas and it's showing itself because it is emitting light in a very specific wavelength, the wavelength of the H alpha transmission line. I shot lots and lots of data. I have RGB data, I have luminance data, I have H alpha data, RGB, H alpha and luminance. Jeez. RGB, H alpha and luminance on one night. H alpha, luminance, H alpha, H alpha. In other words, this is going to be a boring and tedious video if I show that all. But let us do at least some of it step by step. Well, this is Stacking Sunday. I'm going to basically look at my hard drive, what is not stacked yet, and this is me stacking stuff. It's not a tutorial, I'm just curious. What is this data? I shot it, but I didn't do anything with it. So let's dive in. We've got a lot of H alpha. I think I would want to start with that. We're also going to check whether or not I have matching flats to these sets of data. The 7th of February was the first date, but I only shot flats in May, and I did that on 2 subsequent nights. I have no clue why I don't have flats on those other nights. Okay, well, I already mentioned this is not going to be a tutorial. So these are the flats that we're going to use. So the 28th of May, that's the flat we're going to use. Without further ado, this is the H alpha data. I'll drag them in. As I only have flats for one night, I'm going to drag them all in. Ooh, I see a different exposure length. I should stack these separately. Yeah, I have all data here. So let's scroll through the list and check for a final time. 300 seconds, that's what I'm focusing on this scroll. And yes, it's all 300 seconds. And where is the gain? 100 gain. Ooh. Why do I have gain zeros here as well? Those need to be stacked separately. So I'm going to remove those. 100, 100, it's all 100 now. So yes. I always tend to name my sequence with the amount of data that I have. So it's 100 times 300 seconds. And this is, let's call it HA. And let's make sure that I select the correct home directory. Stack Sunday, that's it. Convert. Here we go, and we're done. This is pretty quick. The calibration is where it takes a bit more time. I don't have darks for this because I mentioned it before, this camera is the ASI 2600 mm and it basically has no amp glow or other effects that I really need to remove by using darks. So I don't use darks, and I need to repeat myself over and over again. This is not a tutorial. This is not a way of me telling you that you can take this shortcut. I take this shortcut because I saw that I don't see any benefits of taking darks or applying darks. Oh yeah, we wanted to use the flats of William Optics 81, and it's a oh yeah, I pressed space. I really not enjoy that feature of serial. So William Optics 81. Now I need to click here so it doesn't register my space bar press as a click on the open. And I want the H alpha. What did we say? The 28th, because that was the 104. What's the difference, by the way? I'll see. This one is stored in 16 bits and this is the 32 bits. Yeah, I really need to use this one. And I can go and calibrate it. And this is the process which takes a bit longer. I also, by the way, decreased the amount of processors that Serial can use. And I did that because now probably OBS, the software recording my screen now, is not going to complain about overloading the system or something like that. So yeah, how do you think this stacking Sunday concept is? Should I dive more into depth into certain aspects, or is there any other things that I can do differently that it makes it more informative? For now, it is simply me stacking stuff because I still have stuff on my hard drive, which that hard drive is a 5 terabyte drive, by the way, so space is not the problem. No pun intended there. This data might suck completely. I have no idea. We already saw that I managed to shoot in the wrong gain for some time. What was that other thing? Oh yeah, I also shot in different exposure lengths. So now we have the registration done. Let's, by the way, look at the auto stretch so we can actually see the data. Now I go into registration. I leave it on global star alignment. If you, for instance, have an issue with your stacks not being registered, then perhaps the option to pass global star alignment is a good idea. It will essentially do the registration, it will do the analyzing of the images, but it will not do the actual transformative registration, so the aligning of the individual images, because that is mostly the step where it fails. If, for instance, your first image is not good enough or has clouds or whatnot, so if you do 2-pass star alignment, it will have all the quality information on all the subs in your sequence, and it will then be able to decide which of those images is the best, and it will then do the alignment on that best image. So if you then do the 2-pass global star alignment, after it is done, you need to then once again go into the registration tab. You can, by the way, then first go into the plot and do all kinds of funny things by removing wrong data or whatnot. But afterwards you need to go back to the registration tab and then select the apply existing registration. It will then do that aligning, and afterwards you can go into stacking. Let's go global star aligner. I think it will manage perfectly. So this once again will take some time. In the meantime, let's look at what we have. We also have luminance data, which is only 3 nights. Perhaps I should have stacked that first. And we have RGB, but I think the IFN will be mostly in the luminance. If I go back to that image that I shot a long time ago, here I can see the details. I combined the data with a friend. He had a color camera, so the 7 hours and 16 minutes worth of data was all color. And I had 16 hours of data, well, and 20 minutes. It was primarily luminance data that I shot, and some H-alpha. Apparently there was a big outlier here. Curious what happened there. Cumulus interruptus. That's probably what happened here. I really enjoy one feature in Cyril, which is that I can just drag a box here. I have dragged the box here, and then I can right click the box and I can say only keep the points within the selection. And now this image has been removed, but I think perhaps these are also not really good. Let me see. Yeah, see, those are also pretty bad. This one is actually good enough, I think. So perhaps if we just drag another box here, and we have this image just within the selection box, and I do again only keep those, then I should be okay, I guess. Yeah. One other aspect that helps to detect whether or not clouds were in the way is setting this one to background. It also clearly shows, by the way, that I shot these data on different nights. This was probably one night where at the end it started to get either more cloudy or daylight was approaching. And this was on a very dark night. This might also have something to do with the moon, for instance. I think that might be the more logical reason. And if I go into the frame list once more, now it is set to background, and it's the best image is on the top. So this was the darkest, and the least dark image was this one. Well, I don't really see that much difference. I think we will just go with this. So we can go into stacking, and we will be left with 89 images out of the 94 that we registered. And I mentioned that the Integrated Flux Nebula will be primarily in the luminance data. So I really want to go and stack that as well in this Stacking Sunday video. So there was this discussion on Facebook the other day where somebody said that background removal tools were unnecessary and they will remove certain data from your image. Yes, of course, that's the gradient that it needs to remove. But this technique that he proposes, essentially the entire background is clipped. And I find it very difficult because especially this area in the night sky it's not all gradients, it's data. So why would you want to clip it all to black? Yeah, space is not black. Not that this image is great, by the way, there's so much noise. But yeah, perhaps Cyril has been completed. Let's zoom in. Look at that. So much H-alpha going on within that galaxy. And those jets, yeah, pretty nice. But there's also a lot of noise still. That's just the way things go. And there's a gradient. It's very black here, very light here. I'm not sure if this black has anything to do with some kind of object. getting in the way, but we'll mess with that later. Let's first go into the calibration, in the conversion tab once more, and let's go and drag those luminance lights into the mix, because I'm really curious if that will indeed show us even more data. So we have luminance for that night, and we should also have luminance on this night. Green, red, H alpha, luminance. There. It's all 300 seconds again. This folder should also contain luminance data. By the way, that image that I showed of M81, M82, the data for it should be in here. So I could potentially add even more luminance data to the mix. I'm not going to do that now. But my final image I want to create is something that will include all the data that I have on this object. That's the main purpose of saving all those subs on my hard drive, because it will allow me to combine it later on. So 146 times 300 seconds luminance, let's convert. And boom, there we are. I think I'm going to write down my plan of attack. And perhaps this data set would inspire me to create an entire dedicated video on M81, M82 in how to combine all this data and process it. It might even be worthwhile to use Cyrillic once more. I've showed that software in a video on mosaicing, but these extensive projects where you have color, luminance, H alpha, then Cyrillic might come in handy, because you can pre-set up everything and then it will basically run a script. So we have the option now to go into registration. There we go. Finally, I added 3 nights worth of data, right? So if I look at those backgrounds, I see 3 peaks. Not sure about the moon phase on those nights, but I think it's likely that the moon was up those nights. Oh, and clouds, of course. I always forget about that we have this phenomena in the atmosphere called clouds. Well, let's go and do the drag a box thing again, and I just remove much of the data that is bad anyway. So is this one good? It's good enough. Is this one good? Let's see, show frame. By looking at this data, that I should probably tackle this differently. I'm going to not get the optimal results here. Why am I saying this? Because these nights that I shot this data on, you can see that the gradient is jumping all over the place. And this gradient is primarily caused by some light pollution, potentially, or the moon, as we mentioned before. So I should probably use the gradient removal option, but apply it to the sequence. So I should probably better create sequences for every day, apply the background extraction, the gradient removal essentially, on the sequences, because each day the gradient will be fairly similar. This jumping around will not happen on data for the same day, is the theory. So the background extraction tool should be able to remove those gradients much better, and only then, after I have pre-processed that and have the gradients removed, combine all those pre-processed files into one sequence, register those, and stack those. I think that would be the best plan. But I'm very curious whether or not that integrated flux nebula will be visible if I stack this. So here we go. We'll stack it, we'll look at it. I will then show you the end result, the end result. It will not be the definitive end result, as I mentioned. I think this data set requires a more in-depth processing, something that perhaps warrants another video, but yeah, I think we all now know what kind of data I have. It's plagued with the wolken. That's the Dutch word for clouds. It sounds so lovely, but no, this hobby, no. I tend to call them cumulus interrupters, because that's essentially what they do. They interrupt my imaging sessions. Yes, here we are. So this is the stack. Let's see if the histogram shows us anything other than that insane gradient. And yes, I can see some of the integrated flux nebula here. Perhaps if I just do a background extraction, and I'm not going to mess with anything, I'll add the dither thing. I do that all the time now. I'll generate a thingy and compute the background, and I'll just apply it. Woohoo! Look at that. So here you see why you shouldn't clip your background all the way to black, because there is much more data in the background than you might think. Is this all accurate now? I'm not completely sure, because I had that insane gradient because of all that jumping around that I mentioned. But yeah, if I compare it with my earlier image, we orient it in the same way as it is on that other image, then yeah, I think I have indeed succeeded in getting some of that integrated flux nebula into the image. It's far from perfect. I need to do this better. So I'm going to stop this recording. We're going to look at this another time in a more in-depth video, where I will probably first have to plan it. It will be a more thoughtful video then, but it will take a lot of time. I can already tell. But yeah, we have M81, M82, or was it the other way around? I never know. Oh wait, Cyril knows. M82, M81. So, this was Stacking Sunday. I hope you learned something of my fumbling around. This was not a very constructive Stacking Sunday episode, but it at least shows that you should not clip your background to black to get rid of gradients that much, because the background holds information. Space is not black. That was my thesis. No. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.